Hello out there, and today I wanted to do a little bit of an impromptu discussion video regarding steel and how much steel really matters. And this video, if you check out the title, you understand it says, "Let's talk about steel." It's really intended to be a beginning to a conversation with all of you. And I always endorse your comments down below. I'm always happy to hear from you. But in this case, more than usual, I definitely want to get your feedback when it comes to how you feel about steel and what your preferences are and why you feel that way. All right, but for me, I've got to tell you guys that over the past 6 months to a year, my opinion has really started to develop. It started to evolve a little bit into caring a whole lot less about what steel I get in a knife. The other aspects of a knife are starting to be more and more important to me, and the steel itself, while the trendy stuff is still really appealing in a lot of ways, and I do get caught up in that excitement when something new comes out. When it comes to a practical sense, more and more, it just doesn't matter to me that much anymore. You know, once we cross that premium threshold and we get into the realm of 154 cm, anything else like M4, D2, I can't tell the difference. In practical EDCUs, I cannot tell the difference, and I've never, guys, have I been in a situation where I'm using this 154 cm mini grip and I'm thinking, wow, I wish this was an S30V, or I wish this was an M390, because it would be doing so much better now. Never. It just has never happened, and so that's sort of what I wanted to talk about and get into today, and a lot of it is going to revolve around the D2 testing, because a lot of those opinions I was forming were more or less confirmed throughout that process. And if you didn't watch the D2 testing videos that I did, I had a bunch of different D2 from a number of different manufacturers that I was testing against each other just to see what would hold up the best. And I also had some control groups, because this is a D2 mini grip, but I used the 154cm one, the M4 one, a 440C one, just as a control to see how other steels would do. And just throughout that process, everything performed so well. And I was hoping to have a quick test and something dull and just not be that good and just get a conclusive result. But the longer that test went, the more I realized, like I said before, that there are just too many variables for anything to be conclusive. And the only general thing that I could pull from all of the results that I had was that all the knives, all the steels are good. And I really just don't care which one is better than the other. I didn't. At the end of the day, I was like, they're so good, it doesn't even matter anymore. They're all just really performing very well. And other things, apart from the blade steel, I'm sure are what's going to impact how they perform the most, whether it's the edge quality, the edge geometry, the grind of the knife, so many other aspects that will be very, very important. The knives in that test were sharpened by Jeff Jewell. You can still see, they still have a pretty nice looking mirror to them, because they really, really held up. And after that test, I got to thinking, I was like, man, I've always liked S30V a lot. S30V has been probably my favorite premium steel for a long, long time. And I've said multiple times that I just prefer it to S35VN. But I wonder if I wasn't being part of the problem there. And I wonder if maybe I just got, the first S35VN knife that I got, maybe the edge on it just wasn't that good from factory. Maybe it was ground weird and I didn't notice. Maybe it just dulled quickly because whatever reason. And it wasn't the steel's fault, it was just a knife problem. And that's what shaped my entire opinion. And I don't know, but that's sort of the way that I'm going when it comes to thinking about steel, is that so often, we might say, oh, this S30V, this was crap because of this reason or that, or it just chipped, or it dulled, or whatever. And yeah, maybe sometimes that's the steel, but a lot of times it's just the knife. And I think a lot of the judgment that we should be putting on individual knives, we end up putting on the steel that's chosen for the knives. So that is a big thing to keep in mind when it comes to premium steels, but also to budget ones. And that's what I want to talk about now. 8CR13 MOV. So if we're staying in that same area of focus with, well, maybe it's not the steel, it's the quality of the grind, it's the quality of the edge. Well, with budget knives, you're getting budget materials, sure, but you're also getting budget manufacturing. And so my guess is that when it comes to 8CR, there's a lot of knives that just aren't ground that well. There's a lot of knives that don't have perfect edge geometry. There's a lot of knives that aren't sharpened all that great out of factory for long-term performance. And that happens. And so I'm sure there's a lot of situations where people get a crap knife from a factory and the knife isn't that good and they blame the steel that's attached to it. And you can't blame someone for doing that, but I think there's just a wider scoped issue than just the steel. Now, when it comes to 8CR 13 MOV, I've also got to tell you, I like it. Does it perform on the level of 154 or any of the premium steels? Absolutely not. It does not. And one thing that I did, and I'm really, really glad that I did this to put it in perspective, but I had been going along with the D2 testing with all the different knives for a long time. And I'd been going on and off with it. Anytime I had, a few extra minutes, I'd cut some stuff and do like a round of testing and then, move on with my day. And I got this Kershaw fault line and actually incorporated it into the middle of the test. So the testing had been going on for a long time already. Tons and tons of cuts had already been done. But I just started with the fault line, which has 8CR 13 MOV in the middle of the test. And I tested it against everything just to let it just start going in the middle of the rounds. And it dulled before any of the premium stuff did at all. So naturally, that's what you would expect. I mean, the 8CR did not hold up even remotely to the level that any of the premium stuff did. It dulled in a couple hours of consistent use. Not even. But I have to tell you guys, I got a lot of cuts out of it. A lot. And I was happy with the way that it performed. Had no issue with it. So when it comes to 8CR 13 MOV, for me, it's just not a deal breaker. And when I see people like the guys from CRKT talking about how they're confident in 8CR 13 as the steel that they use because they think it's a good steel, I don't really disagree. I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's perfectly suitable for EDC. And everybody's different. Everybody has their own opinions on it. Everybody also has their own needs when it comes to a knife. My needs might be very different. I do have a very active job and I do use my knife just about every day at work, breaking down boxes and stuff, but I don't use it for more than 15 minutes a day. And I mean, that's on a busy day, like 15 actual minutes. If you're using your knife nonstop at work and you have a job where you need a knife, or you just have a lot of stuff to do with a knife, then yeah, you're gonna beat up some 8CR and maybe it's not gonna be the steel for you. Maybe you want to go in a more premium direction. But for my purposes, I mean, I can get through a week of carrying a knife with 8CR 13 MOV without having to even strop it. For the most part, I mean, the stuff works. Of course, like I said, it's not nearly as good as, your other stuff, your premium stuff that's out there. But when it comes to a budget knife, what I'm looking for is a lot more than just what the steel is. So let's talk about that real quickly. And value. I know I've had a video where I talked about value before, and that was a lot of rambling. Hopefully you're finding this to be a little bit more focused when it comes to the points I'm trying to make. But people always say about 8CR 13 MOV, it's not that good. They charge way too much for the steel. It's way too expensive for the steel. And I don't know, I think that might be a little bit of a naive approach. And again, it just depends on your priorities. But for me, what I really want to start to do is I really just want to start to judge the knife. And I want to hold a knife in my hands and say, do I like it? Am I happy that I bought it? And that's really what matters. Isn't that what matters at the end of the day? More than the steel type, more than what other people say and what the community as a whole agrees on. Like, if you buy a knife and you like it, like, that's really what matters. And the reason why these three knives are out here is that they're all with 8CR, and the fault line is like $26. The Caligo's $30. The Willy Wah is $40. And there are so often going to be people that say, oh, well, the best value is going to be probably here because it's aluminum handle, really great action, and $30 price point is really good. But for me, they're all good value because I like all three of the knives. And if you're going to be, one of those people who's always trying to find the best bang for your buck, there's always going to be a knife out there with better materials at a better price. Always. So what you really should do, and just my suggestion to everyone, is just find a knife that you like. For me, more than steel at this point, I'm way more focused on the handle materials and the ergonomics and the action and the lockup. The lockup. How good is the lockup? Is the lockup good and it's going to be good for years and years? That's what I want. And the Willy Wah. And I just like to give this knife shout outs because no one gets it and no one else has this knife, and I don't know why, because I really, really like it. But the Willy Wah, I think, was a $40 knife, and it's a stainless steel frame lock and it's heavy. And so a lot of people aren't going to like it, but I love the knife. I'm so happy that I have this knife. And yeah, $40, fine. I'm perfectly content having this knife because it locks up like a vault. The action is excellent and it checks off all the other boxes. Do I wish that it had the fancy steel? Sure, on some level, I wish it did. I wish all knives did because I like nice things, No matter how much you like your Toyota Corolla, you're definitely going to want to drive a Ferrari. I mean, there's no question about that. But, we have to look at it from the right perspective. And at least for me, the right perspective is just, if I like it and it gets the job done, then yeah, maybe I paid a few more bucks than I would have needed to if I wanted another knife with the same materials. But I like this knife. And I'm happy that I like this knife. So that's sort of my take on things, guys. With the D2 testing, it was a lot of fun to do, but it really just made things clear that for me, so much of this stuff doesn't matter. And I know that in past videos I've said I'd like to see a budget knife come out in a higher end version. And in a lot of ways that still holds true because the materials changing could mean a titanium or carbon fiber upgrade over stainless steel or aluminum. And so that would always be cool to see. And I always like having different options, and when manufacturers give us that, that's always a good thing. But is it necessary? No, not at all. As a collector, yeah, I want nice things and I'm always going to. And when that new trendy steel comes out, like I said, I might be pretty excited about it and get caught up in it. And that's not a bad thing either. That's sort of natural. That's the way the community is designed. You look at the system that we are in this knife community, it is designed for the next thing that comes out to pique your interest, and they have to come out with something new because a knife that cuts shit really well, that's already been done. So they have to keep coming out with new stuff that gets our attention and gets our money. That's the way the business works, and that's not a bad thing either because it's fun. It's fun to get caught up in it, but it isn't necessary at all. So that's my take, guys. I would really love to hear from you about this. Sorry if this came off like a rant. It really wasn't intended to, but I just wanted to share my take on it because this is something that's been really just, in the back of my mind for a long time, and I wanted to address it and get your take on it and see if I'm sort of on the right track or if you guys see things differently. So any questions, comments, complaints, suggestions, as always, let me know down below. I really appreciate it, guys. Really appreciate you watching this one if you're still here at the 14-minute mark, all right? But take care, and I'll talk with you soon. Have a good one.